With everything happening with COVID-19, aka the coronavirus, you probably have heard a little bit about wedding insurance, but what exactly is it and what does it cover? That's what we're talking about today. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Hitched Academy. My name is Kimberly Rose and I'm a professional wedding planner. And today we are talking about wedding insurance. I will tell you, prior to this whole coronavirus situation, I would say that probably 20% of my clients actually chose to get wedding insurance. It's something we tell all of our clients about, but then they have to make the decision for them on whether or not they want it. I will say now wedding insurance seems even more important, but it also is probably even harder to get. So there's that. So what is wedding insurance, first of all? Just like any insurance policy, like you would have for your car or for your home or renter's insurance, it basically is a policy that will pay you back money when something goes wrong. You get in a car accident, your insurance policy pays to get your car fixed. You have renter's insurance and there's a flood, renter's insurance pays for your belongings and to get things fixed. Wedding insurance is the same thing. However, there are some things it does and doesn't cover. I will tell you, with this whole coronavirus situation, we have two clients that we've been the most concerned about with spring weddings. Both of them have insurance policies. Thank goodness. And both of them are very different from each other. So all wedding insurance policies are not created equal. You'll have to be very specific about what kind of coverage you're looking for and how those policies pay out. So I will say, read the fine print. I am not an attorney, I'm not an insurance expert, but I do know, most specifically from calls I've made to two different insurance companies in the last week, that every policy is a little bit different. So you have to be very specific as you're looking at it and deciding what coverage you want. I'm gonna go through today some of the things that insurance can cover and what it's for and why you might need it, and then you can decide what works for you. Now, wedding insurance has a lot of different policies, but one of them that I think is honestly a great reason to use it is for vendor situations. So let's say, for example, you hire a caterer 9 months before your wedding or 6 months before your wedding, even 3 months before your wedding, and you've paid them a big deposit. Even 50% or maybe 75%, maybe you've paid them in full and that company goes out of business and files bankruptcy before your wedding. You could be screwed. However, wedding insurance policies really help recoup some of those costs to something unexpected like that. I mean, we'd hate for it to happen, but I've seen over the years, florists shut their doors, cake bakers shutting their doors, venues closing unexpectedly, caterers closing unexpectedly, and chances are they have clients who have paid them money in advance for their event and they are not able to fulfill those contracts. Wedding insurance is one of the things that can help you get some of that money back so that you can move on without being completely in the hole. Another reason wedding insurance can be good is for liability reasons. So for example, you've signed a contract with your venue and as part of that, there's probably something in there about damage, that any damage to the venue is the responsibility of the person who signed the contract. I've actually had an event where some drunk groomsmen went into the bathroom and pulled out the stalls from the wall. Who does that? Who does that? Anyway, it was a historic venue, so it wasn't just, a couple $100 to fix, it was a couple $1,000s to fix. And it is the responsibility of the person who signed the contract for the venue to cover those costs. Wedding insurance can protect you for any damage to the venue caused by one of your guests, and it's just, a way to help recover some of those costs if something unfortunate like that were to happen. We obviously don't see it often, but heaven forbid you're the one situation where a guest breaks something and it has to be repaired. Now, some wedding insurance policies include an alcohol component. So let's just say you're serving alcohol at your event and someone gets into a car accident and they want to sue you because they think it's your responsibility that they were overserved. Granted, these situations are very unlikely, but the only way to protect yourself is with some sort of insurance policy. So there are, again, some insurance policies that have an alcohol component protecting you as the event host of any situations related to alcohol consumption and someone being overserved. Some wedding insurance policies will also cover accident or injury. So if one of your guests gets injured at your event, if they slip and fall on the dance floor and are hurt and have medical bills and end up wanting to sue you for said medical bills, a wedding insurance policy can help cover you in some of those cases or provide some reimbursement in those situations. Now, some wedding insurance policies will cover you or pay you back if your event has to be postponed or canceled. And typically the reasons for the postponements and the cancellations can vary on how much they're covered. So for example, you might have a weather portion of your policy. So if weather is bad or your event has to be canceled, you could be covered or not. You really have to read the fine print. Also, pandemics like coronavirus, we have found very recently that many insurance policies do not cover pandemics. So if it is a national emergency because of a pandemic and a virus going around, some policies do not cover that. So again, you have to really do your research. I am not an insurance expert by any means. I am not an attorney, so you really do have to read what those policies cover. I have one client right now who has a great wedding insurance policy, and it does include a cancellation and postponement clause. And the way it is written, in talking with their insurance company very recently, it is basically if the event has to be canceled because, let's say it's a pandemic, but the venue won't allow it, or a city or state government ordinance won't allow the event to take place, their insurance policy goes into effect. However, if the client chooses to cancel or postpone their event, yet the city, the venue, everything else is saying it can still go on, then their insurance policy does not cover them. All of that to say, wedding insurance policies are very individual and very different from company to company, and what they cover is very different. So you really have to look at what you're getting, how much you're paying, and what that payout is. In most cases, you decide how much coverage you need based on the cost of your event. So if you're having a $30,000 wedding, you don't need $100,000 in coverage in case of an event cancellation. However, you might want a higher payback for liability if someone were to slip and fall or someone were to damage the venue. Also, depending on where you are, what venue you're at, you might be required to have a liability policy. So one of our events is at a museum, and as such, they require a wedding insurance policy or special event policy in order to make sure that their artwork, their sculptures, etc. are covered. I will say all of these things, the chances of these things happening are fairly slim, but it really comes down to being completely covered or taking on that risk on your own. So unlike car insurance or homeowners insurance, things that are required by maybe your mortgage company or even by the state or the country, these insurance policies for weddings are completely optional, completely voluntary. At one point, I used to say to my clients, it really kind of depends on how risk averse you are. In today's climate, I feel a little bit differently about that. However, I know wedding insurance policies are also going to be more difficult and more expensive to come by with everything that's happening with coronavirus and events being canceled. So keep that in mind. You'll definitely have to do your own research to figure out what works best for you, how much those policies are, and how much that they will actually cover. Now, if you're interested in wedding insurance and think it might be for you, I would highly recommend you do some research. There are lots of companies that do wedding insurance, and a Google search makes it a little bit hard to tell who's legit from who isn't. But there are lots of companies who offer it, and if you can't find it under wedding insurance, special event insurance is also one of the terminologies that's used. I would highly recommend going to your own insurance company that you use for other things. For example, your car insurance or your homeowner's insurance or renter's insurance, those companies often have special event insurance policies that they can add on, and you might see some savings if you're already a customer. One of our clients who has honestly the best insurance policy that I've seen for a wedding is using her own insurance company, very reputable company that she's worked with before, and they've added on a special event insurance policy for her. I will tell you, in making phone calls this week for my clients who may be affected by the coronavirus, I've found two things. One, the phone calls have led me to recordings that say, we're experiencing higher than normal call volume. unexpectedly. And secondly, one of the insurance companies who has the best policy that I've seen, their voicemail literally says they are no longer offering wedding or special event insurance. And I know it's because of everything that's happening in the world right now. I'm sure that they are paying out a lot more than they expected, and because of that are putting a little hold on doing policies going forward. All that to say, it might be a little bit challenging to find a good policy, but you really should do the research on it. In the past, meaning pre-coronavirus, my clients were able to get policies for just a couple $100s or a few $100s, which offered a lot of coverage. Now I'm sure those prices are going to skyrocket, but it is worth looking into just for the peace of mind. Now, if you found any of this information to be helpful, do me a favor, give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to be notified when new videos are released. Thanks for joining me here at Hitched Academy, and I will see you soon.